to this meeting of the Regional Transport Committee. Welcome to our members of our and those that our councillors that are attending because they want to, and also to our staff. Ngā mihi kia tātou katoa. And I think Andy was. So Councillor Cranston is online, and Charlotte is also online. So big welcome to everybody. So we have no apologies. We have no declarations or any declarations of interest. Cool. Confirmation of non-confidential minutes on page 5. We have a mover and a shaker.
Yes, so I seconded that and I wasn't.
And you weren't there?
Got me as late, but I wasn't late.
Oh no, you weren't late, I remember that. So just make a note that Councillor Thompson wasn't late. He was going to be, but wasn't in the end. You happy to move those?
Yeah.
Councillor Telfer moved, seconded by Councillor Gregory, thank you. And moving on to the regional transport minutes of the 14th of February on page 8. Do we have any to move that? Oh, no. Thank you, Councillor Gregory, seconded by me. All in favour? Aye. And then on to our regional transport hearings and deliberations. So we had an excellent turnout of submitters, and just another big mihi to everybody who submitted to the regional transport plan, and also who participated in electric transport, to those who wrote and also those who attended in person. So thank you, Councillor Gregory, for moving those, and seconder. Thank you, Linda, for that. And can I move that we, all in favour? Aye. Any against? Carried. And then the governance work plan, which is on page 35. Oh, sorry, 25. Okay. So we are discussing both of those items today. So look forward to hearing from Charlotte. Okay, no leaves of absence, acknowledgments and tributes. Teddy.
Karakia.
Oh, sorry, we went right past Karakia. Yes, you're right, Teddy. How about you do our Karakia, and then you'll, while you're on, you can talk about the tributes that you'd like to make today.
Ngā mihi o te rā ki te whānau e hui nei kia tau te rangi mari ia kia whakatapua tātou me ngā mea e whakapono ana tātou haumi hui e taiki.
Just acknowledgements. I just want to acknowledge Nui Tibble, the brother of Rhonda Tibble. I knew Nui from primary days. We used to walk home with her and sister Angela, so he was just a super nice guy. We missed him in the community. Just want to acknowledge him and send condolences.
Tēnā koe Teddy. Kāna ngā mihi ki ngā mate turua, tēnei wiki, ngā whakaro ki a rātou i a rātou whānau. Just supporting Teddy and his acknowledgements of the others that have passed in this time, and sending condolences to Councillor Tibble. don't have any public input and petitions, nor do we have any extraordinary business. Notice of motion, or any adjourned business. All right, so we're into it. Reports of the Chief Executive and staff of division around the adoption of the Tairāwhiti Regional Land Transport Plan and Regional Public Transport Plan. Charlotte.
Charlotte is online. I'm not sure if Charlotte hasn't had an opportunity to have a look. James is here to talk to the paper.
Here to talk if you
James,
take a seat.
Come up and take a seat, please.
Great, thank you.
And James can respond to any of the questions, but just as a high level, you've got the summary there, you've got the, from your deliberations and consideration of the submitters' points, there's been amendments or proposed changes that have been put to you in the summary, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. So I will take the report as read, but I just wanted to make a couple of key points in relation to the process in particular. So today, the report is asking that the Regional Transport Committee recommends that the Council adopts both the final Regional Land Transport Plan and the final Regional Public Transport Plan. And it needs to be made clear that that adoption doesn't mean that there is approval for any particular project or item in those documents. This is about approving the direction, the strategy, the way that the documents set out the challenges we have and what we do about them. But any individual project still needs to go through the relevant approval process. So that's just something to make really, really clear in terms of what we're asking RTC to do today. So with that in mind, the key issues really since the last deliberations meeting is that staff have gone through a really informative set of comments, and it was really good to see the support that many people provided to both the RLTP and the RPTP. There's actually a lot more enthusiasm for public transport out there than certainly I thought existed previously, and that's really encouraging because we are looking to try and improve things for public transport users, in particular through the RPTP. So that was really great. And in terms of the RLTP, we have another agenda item later on about resilience, but clearly that's a huge issue alongside recovery for this region. And it was very clear in the submissions and the deliberations that point is front and centre of the RLTP and does influence everything we do. So that was really good to see. In terms then of what we did, we've been through the RLTP. We have made a series of proposed amendments. So in your report, there is a summary table which effectively summarises each submission point and proposes, or actually outlines what we're proposing to do with the document to change it. And then you have the documents as attachments, so you can actually see what changes in terms of whether we're proposing. So I'm not going to go through them in detail, but I'm going to leave it open now for people to provide any comments or feedback on the report. Yeah.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Okay, open the floor to our committee. I'd like the opportunity to make any amendments or suggest amendments, or and then we'll vote on issues. Yes. So yes, Councillor Gregory, comment at the
I'll
bit.
rip in it. I just wanted to talk about the cashless ticketing system in buses. I just want to support Councillor Thompson with this, but from a different angle in terms of I'm a member of the Tairāwhiti Positive Ageing Trust, and so I sought some feedback, particularly from those people, and there is a bit of anxiety there with regards to going totally cashless. Not that, and also our district is moving into having more elderly people, in our population. So I wonder if we are kicking that off maybe a little too soon. So I just wanted to refer to an email from one of them that it's just difficult for old people to work out how to get the card, how to use it, and so I'm just wondering if we should have that in there just yet.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that any move towards a cashless system would need to go through an awful lot of public consultations. The RPTP isn't going to say, from now we're going to do it.
Okay.
There are some advantages to cashless payments, and I also think you make a very good point in that we don't make it particularly easy, even now, I think, to get people to understand how the B card system works, how to top up your B card, and I'm sure there's more we can do in that space. So I think it's a great opportunity to, it's the wrong word, but to encourage people to start using the B card and showing them that it isn't actually as complex as it may seem. At the end of the day, if people still want to pay cash and this committee and indeed the council agree that is what should happen, then we won't ultimately impose a cashless ticketing system on anyone. That's not what we're about. We need to give people the confidence to use public transport. If that means that cash remains, then so be it.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Tairāwhiti.
Yeah, just on the cashless travel, it's actually cheaper if you do get a B card than using cash. There is benefits of getting a card, and I support the card, but I also want the option of cash being there for the one-offs. If someone comes to Gizzy and just wants to use the bus, they're not going to have a B card or anything else. And I've had my credit card scammed, and while I'm waiting for it in the mail, I've taken cash down to the licensing place to get diesel Ks for my van. I've lined up for 40 minutes, only to be told they don't take cash. And yeah, it's quite fine. I just think we need to encourage people to go towards a cashless, but I think we still need that option, especially for the one-offs and for the elderly.
I think that's what James was saying. But I'll just come across, so I come back to you. I think
just on the cashless, I think the opportunity to have a transition period is just and valid, noting that the national ticketing system will be cashless and will be in play across the whole country by the end of 2026. So Canterbury is the first cab off the rank, for want of a better term, this year, with all other councils then moving across through 2025 and 2026. So you've got a good time period here to support the community through education, but it is coming, the cashless system, through the national ticketing system. And that is specified and supported in the GPS. So you need to consider that.
Yeah, I just think you find that there's never going to be a right time. There's always going to be people that use it, but it's not that hard. Anyone been to Waiheke Island, you just go up and buy a card off the bus driver. I just don't think there'll ever be a right time. If it's removing cash so the bus driver's not seen with a whole lot of cash on board is a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose that the key thing here is that it's not like tomorrow. It will be phased in over time. We can keep a check on that in this committee in terms of how is that being communicated out to our communities, and accessibility. You raised the issue about accessibility, Councillor Thompson, in terms of people have to come to the council to get the B card, or maybe there's machines that you can buy them from, kiosks or whatever, that are more accessible than right now.
I don't think you can buy them cards on the buses.
No, right now you can't, but over time, if this national ticketing system is coming in at the end of 2026, that by then, there should be all of the relevant things in place. Yeah?
We will need to make it a lot easier for people to buy those cards. And that's not just in Gisborne, that's across New Zealand. It's pretty hard. Apart from Auckland, the bigger cities, Auckland and Wellington, do it quite well. Once you get out of there, it becomes quite hard. So that is something we're definitely going to need to look at, irrespective.
Okay. Well, on that, okay.
Yeah, can I just add to that? Yes, I do definitely see the benefits, and I do see us definitely heading that way. But I just think for things like fundraisers, koha at Marae, when we had Gabriel, all our power, no one had cash, no one could purchase anything. Like, I think we need a backup. We do need that backup there and have that ability.
Noted, Councillor Thompson. So is this the final vote, Lydia? Or what do we do?
If you're comfortable with, well, if you wanting to change that.
So at the moment, what we say in the narrative is about incentivisation. So this would be RPTP page 17. What that will be in the agenda, I'm not quite sure. Check.
Page 87.
87, is it? Thank you. So let's just have a look at the wording. Make sure we're happy with that. Right, so at the moment, this is under policy format ticketing. We say action 4B, encourage take-up of cashless ticketing through education and publicity, as well as financial incentives by increasing the discount for B-card usage, or that will be NTS, compared with cash fares. So that's the action that we have. So we're not saying at the moment that we will implement a cashless system, but we are encouraging take-up through education and publicity and financial incentives.
I think I've read somewhere it says remove cash option from buses.
Where did you see
It
that?
does say on page,
Which page?
in the summary it says move to a cashless ticketing system in buses, but really what's said in the actual policy.
It's
fine.
looking.
Yeah.
It's fine, okay.
Yeah, that was the submission point. So in the so that was the submission point from the bus operator. Effectively, I think we're saying that okay, we recognise your point, but actually we're still not going to go quite that far at this stage, saying that's the policy. So I think that's fine.
Okay, so we acknowledge that the cashless system will be coming in over time. At the end of 2026, it'll be going national. Our focus though is on the education, access to cards. There won't be any cash, the cash option won't be taken away. Not tomorrow and not in the immediate future. It's more like if that happens, there will be large consultation about that. Okay, do we need to vote on that thing, or are we okay with leaving it in as is?
Yeah, I think just as long as it's noted that there is a cash option until government makes the ultimation that we can no longer use it. It's the main thing, I suppose.
I just ask us to remind us to speak up to the heavens.
So I'm not sure on my volume, sorry.
Yeah, I'll remind you. Okay, so that's that one. Thank you, Debbie, for raising that. Right, next. Taki, who'd like to go next?
Yeah, I've
Councillor Thompson?
got quite a few questions.
Which page are we on?
So we go to page 78. Page 74, please.
Page 74.
Yeah, just mentions a rebrand of road safe Tairāwhiti. So is that changing from road to zero? Doesn't say what it's changing from.
That's an item for my colleague L'Oreal, I think.
All right, so Tairāwhiti.
I can speak to that. We are looking to create a sort of brand for road safety, so it's not part of overall road safety strategy. It will align to that, but it's just to formally do campaigns, events for road safety, education that it has a name to it. So, for example, the likes of Hawke's Bay has Hawke's Bay. Road Safe Hawke's Bay, there's Road Safe Taranaki, and it just takes away from just being branded as the council or Waka Kotahi. So obviously they'll still feed into that, but it's just giving the community something with road safety too.
So it's not actually a rebrand, it's a new brand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Carry on.
Page 78 says traffic congestion has negative impacts on local economies, and then it talks about 3 complementary ways to tackle this, and the third one that says replace internal combustion engine vehicles with zero emission alternatives. I'm not sure how that reduces congestion.
Improve the mode of travel. That's a good question.
That's actually a good question.
How does it?
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, actually, that is right.
So will that be removed?
Yeah, I think so, because yeah, it is actually about reducing emissions rather than reducing congestion, the replacement. So I think we could probably take that out if anyone's.
Just to clarify, I think in terms of, we might just need to change the framing of that particular list, Councillor Thompson, because the transport priority is about transport choice overall. So that will be where the avoid, shift, improve comes from, will be from that mode shift element, as opposed to specifically addressing congestion.
Okay. But so you're going to tutu around with that sentence, Charlotte?
Yeah.
We'll reshape
Yeah,
it.
just the sentence above that bullet point list. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
No, what's it?
Okay, one more than 10.
Indeed.
Page 81, it says re buses. Saying at bus stops they're going to have cycle parking and also accommodate bicycles on the buses. But I think that might be okay for Auckland, where they bike to a bus stop and then they've got a long trip on the bus. But I think for Gisborne, you can bike anywhere in 5 minutes. I think that's probably more a national, larger city thing than something that's really necessary for Gisborne.
I'll take your advice on those of you who bike around Gisborne.
Well, if you're on a bike, you're not really going to jump on the bus. It's 5 minutes in Gizzy. So.
I'd say that's probably fair, actually. Yeah, I think if you look at the types of journeys that would be done, you'd say, yeah, most people would either just do it cycle or bus. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair.
Here, however, if we have a really good, reliable public transport system, it's raining, you're on your bike, you might not put your bike on the bus, and then, so I guess it's about really future-proofing your public supply of buses with what they can hire.
Yeah, again, this isn't happening tomorrow. We've got a long-term plan. Yes, Linda?
It's usually about how to connect into your bus route, especially as you're establishing, and one of the kind of key issues to overcome is usually, it's called like the last mile, but noting that your buses don't connect to everywhere people want to go or want to get picked up from. It is quite common for people to scoot or bike to the nearest bus stop, especially if it's a bit further out, get on the bus, then get off and have to just, cycle along or scoot along or whatever it might be. So it is probably more about future proofing, but it's ensuring that especially as you build up your public transport network, that those that are not lucky enough to have it coming past their door could still use it. But it's usually that kind of last mile connection where people will walk, bike, scoot to get to the office or something. So it's probably more about future-proofing and ensuring that when the opportunity to come to invest in those kind of things, you've got it in your plan and you're able to do it. So you're probably quite right at the minute. It's
Well, I'm just thinking we're in recovery at the moment. We're wanting to reduce costs as much as possible. Maybe down the track, it's an idea, but at the moment I just think we need to keep costs as a cost we don't really need at the moment is my way of thinking.
Yeah, I think again, it's not a, that this will happen immediately.
I think it's for the next 3 years though, isn't it? What we're...
The RPTP and RLTP can be up to 10 years, and at the moment in the RPTP we're looking to just improve the general quality of bus stops, so having the basics like hard standing, shelters where they're needed. So you would imagine that cycle parking facilities are probably not going to be the highest priority in the short term. It's actually just getting bus stops that people can access, particularly those with disabilities, because we heard at the deliberation some of the challenges that those folks have. So I would certainly advise that that's probably likely to be a longer term thing, as other colleagues have said, rather than something we'll be doing.
Okay, and this is the cost, I'm assuming, to ensure that bus contracts provide vehicles, which is bicycles, so that would be on the cost.
Yeah, I mean, normally what happens is you would have a rack on the bus, fairly cheap. The challenge with those is sometimes they can take quite a while to put and so some passengers don't like them. But we can specify that in the contracts if we feel that's something that we want. It's quite straightforward.
Is that the same apply for prams, or is that different type of thing?
Well,
Making sure that there's
prams and things you should be able to accommodate in the bus itself, because if it's if the vehicles are compliant with the requirements for the buses, then there should be sufficient space for prams and up to 2 wheelchair users as well.
Thank you. So we're happy with that discussion, we're elected, and this is again not something that will happen overnight, certainly not before we're in this recovery phase, but that this is up to a 10-year plan.
Yep, yeah, that's more like maybe down the track. To me, it's not.
I think we agree on that. Okay. Someone else want to have a go? Yes?
I'll start.
That's okay.
I just want to go to page 63, and the reason for this is it's talking about the LOS and defining minimum viable base with respect to all the stakeholders. If you go to the next table there on page 63 under sustainability, and I'll show a couple of examples of this, but the activity will not result in demonstrable harm to natural assets, flora and fauna or ecosystems within which they reside, and all potential adverse environmental impacts have effective mitigation measures in place. I just want to, I think the way that some of these things are being used when it comes to cost of jobs and the end cost of a lot of jobs, some of them have been taken on short-term effects, but the actual outcome at the end of the job is there's going to be no harm. And if I use an example, and this is what I've just been told, and I've been out and had a look, is some activities have been taking part on the state highway south of Muriwai. You know, an instance there where one tree, a poplar tree which doesn't even have leaves on it this time of the year, or most of them had fallen off, that had to be removed as part of a job, and the whole job got stopped because it had to get an ecologist in to check for bats. And the whole job was held up while an ecologist was brought in, and I've been told that to remove this one tree ended up costing $17,000. Now, to me, that is just out of control, that sort of stuff. And this, right, you know, the same job, it's redoing rocks in next to abutments for a bridge. Now, having to get an ecologist in to check for fish, and then finding some little cockabillies or something, and then having to bring another ecologist down from Auckland to remove the fish. I really struggle with that sort of thing, because there's been some massive work done out there with steel things being put in, and now they're all being pulled out because we just had a flood and water's just gone over top of the whole thing, and where these so-called fish might have been is, it just seems to be out of control, and the cost of these jobs is just, I think you need to have a look. It needs to be, I'm really worried about the cost of some of these jobs just getting out of control, because these things have been taken to the absolute extreme, and we're facing very limited money with some major jobs to do, and if you look at the costs, you cannot justify them. So I'm really concerned about how that's being used as in the interim, but the costs being associated with some of these jobs because of this are just out of control. So I'm really quite worried about that.
Yeah, would anybody like to respond?
The only thing I would say is your advocacy. I mean, we need to look at the Resource Management Act and the consents that are required to undertake that work. So that's not down to the work itself, that's a requirement in order for us to do it. I'm afraid.
The sooner we get that fixed.
In short.
Well, it's a lot of money that can go into actually fixing roads that actually achieving.
I'm looking across the back there. Any responses from our RLTP? Opportunities?
Just through the chair, in some sites we have to get them the same ecologists. There's some sites, after a flood event, but then next minute we find life forms of different fish and cockabullies. So we've got it's amazing what you can find and how resilient they are. So it gave the team and our contractors, you've got to meet people, there's something there.
Anything to add, Tim?
I don't.
Okay, thank you. And I think, Tairāwhiti, protection of the environment, we've lost so much over the years because of development that keeping an eye on these things when they arise is important to make sure that we don't completely destroy an ecosystem in the process of development. So it's one of those ongoing discussions, I think, but currently we're directed by what the RMA says and what the legislation says, and yes, under this government that might change. And we'll be having a whole lot of other discussions about what is acceptable and not. But thank you for raising that, Councillor Tairāwhiti. That was your first one. Do you want another go?
Just a clarification really. Just page 65 on the graph there, around proposed investment. Just reopening Tairāwhiti Road, I see it's the total there is 30 million, obviously. I thought we were told the original figure was 45 million for that, so I was just wondering, does that change for any reason?
Well, I would imagine, through the chair, since this publication was put together, these were figures that were pulled, I think, from the initial submission that the council made as part of the recovery, so those figures are quite old already.
Okay.
And a point to make generally actually is that all of the figures in this RLTP are still being worked through. That's one of the reasons why we, in our recommendation, say that we will need to delegate any further changes to the Chief Executive before it's submitted to Council. So, yeah, the figures in here are changing all the time for very many projects for a variety of reasons. So, it's just important.
Okay. Now I think one more go.
Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, we just got a thing.
Through the chair, the figure is 45 million at the moment, is in the funding envelope, but that sits with CIP, still needs to be applied for as we develop the project.
Thank you, Tim.
And yeah, one more. Just wondering where we've got page 72, 73, just where talking about the DDC preferred route for logging trucks is State Highway 35 and State Highway 2. I was just wondering, so that basically comes back to the quite a long time with the talk around removing them off Ormond Road, and then we're looking at this is on more or less on hold because of the upgrades to key intersections on State Highway to be implemented. I'm just wondering where are we at with that? Because if this is to happen, is there a time frame or anything like that?
I think it says in the next paragraph that you'll be working towards for the next RLTP, a single stage business case, that will have a look at that freight route. So it'll be in the following 3 years from the, not 24, 27, it must be the 27, 2030.
So those routes will be looked at then?
That's what that is saying, yeah, I think that's what we've agreed to, that the single stage business case will identify the safety improvements at those intersections and then how you then move to designating a freight route to the port.
So it's not going to happen in a hurry?
Obviously not. Okay.
Do you want to move faster, Councillor Telfer?
I'll move a lot faster, please.
So we would like that moved faster, the single stage business case.
Well, I'd just like to know what major upgrades would happen by removing the amount of trucks that are coming down Ormond Road and putting them back on the State Highway. For one thing, for us, it removes the wear and tear on our road experience, puts it back on the State Highway network. So I'm just wondering what are the major changes that have to be made just to remove the amount of trucks coming down through Ormond Road, which is a small percentage on the scale of the whole amount that are coming down Awapreni Road at the moment. So I wouldn't think there would need to be a lot of changes to remove just specifically those trucks that are coming through town on Ormond Road. If you look at the percentage of the total trucks that are going on State Highway 35 through to the port at the moment, I would just like to know what supposedly major changes have to be made that it couldn't be implemented.
And I might, if I may, through the chair, I might just put Charlotte on the spot if she can recall what happened. So I have not been part of the discussions in terms of the single stage business case, but we did have our own heavy traffic bylaw where we said that we would come back and revisit the Ormond Road one because there was a process that happened when under Councillor Seymour was part of the hearing somebody at that point, where that landed and how that intersects with the single stage business case or not. Do you know, Charlotte?
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned this in the April meeting, so apologies if I'm just repeating myself from then. In terms of under the bylaw, we have the mechanism in place, and in theory, we could put it in place. The concerns around the route were around some key intersections and safety, and not having, I guess, poor outcomes through implementing a route without working through that with NZTA, as obviously only part of it is within our network, the other part is within them. So in terms of that business case, we have a rough idea of some of the key intersections, but it's working through some of the modelling and the design, etc. So then we would have more concrete costs in terms of and next steps and a pathway forward that and I guess encompassed the upgrades to some of the local network as well as also the NZTA intersections. And in terms of that, it is predominantly around that State Highway 2 one. I'm happy to resend through the reports in that, and I think Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think through that there is a little bit of information around that. We had some funding which was removed through the PGF for, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but Harper Road from memory. And so that was, I guess, one of our key areas that we needed to consider. In terms of, I guess, current numbers, the route also, when we went through that work, we also looked at the modelling and the predicted future forecast logging that potentially will be coming out of that area as well. So that was something to consider too in terms of safety. Hopefully that's useful, and if I've missed something, Dave or Linda, I'm sure will jump in.
Charlotte's absolutely right.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, Rob?
Chair, yeah, and it also states there in that same paragraph, which is RLTP Road through to Custom House Street, this includes 2 schools. I've been trying to work out where the 2 schools are. As far as I know, there's only 1 school, RLTP School. So, is there another school somewhere? I can't seem to find it. Yeah. Okay, it's me for now, for a little while.
We'll have a breather. Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, just on that, that's something I wanted to raise also. Member of council, years ago, we were pushing to get trucks off Ormond Road, so it's been in the pipeline for ages now. Debbie mentioned it at the last meeting. We had the surgeon who, very heartfelt submission, having to operate on children hurt on Ormond Road, and he was, it was a very heartfelt thing, and he was saying you need to get trucks off Ormond Road as soon as possible. So we wanted to get the wheel really turning on that. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement, and just it's sort of been years now. We just want that to happen as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's right. So, so Charlotte will resend the reports to us to jog our memories, and we can put this on our agenda for the next.
What you're doing is now you're recommending council to adopt the RLTP, and it sounds like in the last meeting this was quite thrashed about in terms of the timing that and the approach that will be taken to the single stage business case. So this is your last chance to be able to make any changes, but did this come out through the hearings process? Was there a clear kind of demand for that, and therefore what does this do in terms of impacting on the rest of the program also needs to be taken into account at this stage. And that's probably a question for staff that have been across the detail of this to be able to respond to.
Yeah, it did come out in the submissions, particularly the surgeon who spoke about the consequences of the heavy traffic.
Charlotte's got a hand up.
Oh, Charlotte, sorry, can't see your hand.
Sorry, I'm never quite sure if you can. I guess in terms of Nadine mentioned about the collective impact of the program, as you know, like we do have a really heavy next 3 years with recovery on top of BAU. In terms of moving things around, I think that's cool, but I'll need to double check the years that this was in specifically in the bid. But if we want to pull that forward further, so the business case is done earlier than perhaps what was the original intent with the numbers, then there is probably another business case that is then going to need to be pushed out in order for staff to be able to be over top of said business cases. And there are a few in there in the next 3 years.
Yes, Linda?
I would as well just note, and do correct me, Dave or Charlotte, I don't believe that there is a bid in TO for funding for this business case in 24-27, and that process is already under moderation now. It hasn't come through perhaps until submission time, the priority for inclusion any earlier. So yeah, Dave and Charlotte, we would just need to have a look if it would even be feasible to try and switch it, if that was the wishes.
So we missed the boat. It's more than 3 years.
Noting that
we are 24 to 27.
We're looking at the Eastland Port access, that's our priority here. but the wider freight route hasn't come through from council as a priority to date.
So, yeah, look, I am struggling because I don't quite understand why the whole business case for this. What's stopping Gisborne District Council enforcing a bylaw where trucks can't come down and back on the road through town? And that automatically puts them back and we put them back onto the highway. What is different from those trucks going that way? They're still going to have to go to the likes of the intersection at the port. So that's not changing anything. It's no different than if at Mangatu Forest or out at Riri, there's another forest starts up, two forests start up harvesting, and it automatically puts more trucks coming in that way on State Highway 35. So I don't quite understand why we then need to look at, because we're going to move a few trucks off here, put them back here, we need to start doing business cases on intersections. The same amount of trucks are coming no matter what. So we seem to overcomplicate things so much and make it hard for ourselves. What's legally stopping us just making them harder? Is there anything?
No, through the chair, no, there is nothing that legally stops us from creating the bylaw, and we had signalled that because how the decision came about to leave it as Ormond Road was an issue for council. However, you'd want to be able to work through that with your partner, your funding partner, because of the impacts that it then puts onto the State Highway 2, and that we have addressed any safety concerns. So no, there's nothing from stopping us, but you'd want to do it in a collaborative way and work.
And as well, through, sorry, Chair, just to make sure, as with anything, there's no unforeseen or unintended consequences of them, which, yeah, my only other note, and that's certainly something, we're not talking about a full business case, that process helps to identify, and it also as well then helps you to have done the work already to secure funding for any other impacts on your network that might come about from that bylaw or ours. Yeah, that would be my only guidance. So there's nothing to stop you, but sometimes it's not as, sometimes other things happen, is all I would say, that you don't expect.
Yes.
Is there a possibility there is an old business case? Because I know this has been floating around for years and years, wanting to move them off Ormond Road. So I struggle to think there wasn't already some sort of business case on it.
Debbie, I was just going to ask you, given you're the most experienced councillor around this table.
We have been here before. In my last term, we, at the Regional Transport Committee, went to consultation with regards to a heavy traffic route, and it was the Waimata up Harper's Road, and we went through all the consultation. There was a lot of opposition to that route, and so when it came to council for a decision to pick the heavy traffic route, council decided that it was going to be Ormond Road and Awapuni Road, and that was the decision, and that wasn't that long ago. That was, you know, my last term.
That's right, but there was a note to review that. That was confirmed, but there was also to review that. You're right.
Yeah, and there was something, and it was about the intersections that had to be upgraded in order to take those trucks from coming out of the Waimata Valley and into Harper Road, off Harper Road into the main road, and then so on. There was quite a bit of work that had to be done before that could be achieved.
When was it?
But I'm also keen to see it a heavy traffic route for us.
We can
I brought it up at the last meeting.
Sorry, Nadine, when was it scheduled to be reviewed?
I can't quite recall, but so that was consultation, and that was 2021, I think, about thereabouts. We'd have to go back and have a look.
It hasn't been, you reckon?
No, it definitely hasn't been revisited, but what Charlotte was saying before, the discussion was in April, and this was the next kind of way that we're going to address it, and we'll go back to the bylaw approach. Correct, Charlotte?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, the focus is been more on, I guess, what may or may not be needed in order to make a route operational rather than the bylaw mechanism, which is for purpose and could be used tomorrow, but it was more around safety and oh gosh, sorry, tongue-tied today, operationalising the route.
Charlotte, your tongue is still on holiday.
It is.
Yes,
Yeah, I sort of struggle with making the intersections so that they can handle, because we're putting these same forestry trucks on these roads, windy roads out in the country that totally fall apart. So if it's okay to put it on those roads, surely we can put it on a state highway. So I sort of struggle that it's not up to standard.
I don't know if it's about the quality of the road, it's more to do with the types of road users in your city as opposed to if you're on a rural part of the network.
so yes.
I just want to note that we're not just kicking this thing down down the road again, because we're talking about a plan here that we sign off on, and we're happy to run with it. And you know this sort of thing, I'm not really. It's been kicked down that road for long enough, and I think we just need to address it. And look, there's always going to be people that it affects, but it's about mitigating the most effects out of the equation. So it's very hard to please everybody, but I think we've just got to show a bit of leadership and say let's get on and do it. But I don't want something in this document that then more or less automatically pushes it out for another 3 or 4 years. I'd like that addressed in some way if we can.
How would we best do that in the plan?
Well, I think is there a consensus from the committee first to do that?
Okay.
Because we've heard two perspectives, and whether it's clear direction from the committee, then we will have to do some fancy footwork to try and see what can be done. Noting the issues that have been identified, which is not already loaded potentially in TO, and which is the system that we have to put in our funding bids, and that there will be some of the other work programs around how we can bring what.
But it would still have to go through prioritisation around, like with any. So I think it's important that it's referenced in the document that it is a priority, but as well making sure you've got local share available for that and what you trade off. So there's probably just a few ripples for the committee, but for council as well to consider in terms of the funding of it. I'd need to get some fast advice as to if anything could be changed in your bid, to be honest. It is in moderation at the moment, so I'm not even sure if we'd be able to. We would need to have a look at that. Sorry,
through you, Chair. I would note that there are also a few business cases in the pipeline that we'd have to talk to our team members on what could be included in that, whether scope could apply to this area specifically, to consider shifting business of that nature. But yeah, with the moderation process underway right now, it's going to be quite challenging to get anything in for this 3-year period.
For this 3-year period. Charlotte?
Just to confirm, some of the work is included in a project that is already in the 3 years, and that's the transport model project. So that, I guess, is what we had planned on doing as part of that wider look at transport network for the next 3 years. And that included the impacts around the network operating framework / plan, which is where some of the heavy vehicle route work came out of, but it also identified other things to look at too, as well as the East Coast PBC as well. So I guess in terms of the next step, that's the current project in the current next 3 years, which is relevant to this heavy vehicle route in terms of a next step.
Okay.
For you, Chair, I would just note the network operating framework piece of work that Charlotte refers to is the proper way of understanding the strategic view of your network, therefore understanding implications as far as users, traffic movements, things of that nature at a strategic level. So then when you get to the modeling, you get into more of the details and the understanding of the impacts on the river. Then you could follow through, and it would be a much simpler process to build upon that good foundation of information.
Okay.
I think, but what I'm hearing from the committee members is that this is a priority and you want to see some effort put towards it in this RLTP, not pushed out to the next 3 years. So thinking about that and what the mechanism to do that, given all the constraints that are evident around funding. So I think maybe if that's a piece that we can take to look at, because I just don't have all the information and
We'll need to take an action as well.
right now. But that means then that there is a constraint around, well, just subject to that, to how we bring that piece of that in. I wonder if we can just park that for a minute while I get some order and just have a look.
Because we would be including it, but it would go to full council anyway.
Yeah.
Further discussion and approval.
Well, it's already in here as a priority, it's just that what it's saying is that it's in the next RPTP period to do that. So what things can be done in this RLTP period that won't be the single stage business place, or does it all rely on that? And I'm looking for those in the know, like Charlotte and Dave, that are deeply in this, to give us a bit more guidance here.
I think the point is, as councillor tells, so we don't want to just keep kicking it down the road. We need to deal with it as best as we possibly can in as short a time frame as possible, and have some certainty around that.
Through the chair, if it came down to a financial decision, then that's going to be made either from council under recommendations from our team, or from the transport agency, that the cost of that side doesn't stack up because we've already got these other projects. But that shouldn't limit us to actually progressing this thing to a stage where we can actually say, hey, this is viable, it's not viable. That's all. I don't want to get 3 years and then start a process that takes us another 3 years, and next minute we're in 6 years down the track and people are still having a go at us and why trucks coming down back on the road. So
We might not be here.
well, that's very likely, and it might be a personal choice.
Okay, we've done that one.
Going on holiday with Heather.
We got any more issues?
No, I just, when forestry changes, you might have a country road that's never had a truck, and then it's got heaps of truck movement, and it just seems we don't have to go through such a process in terms of those roads. So I sort of struggle why it's such a process in this scenario, how it sort of, the scenario changes so much, because surely this is a state highway, surely it's got more attributes than a windy country road.
I'm sure things always look simple, but there's layers of complexity that we are unaware of, Councillor Thompson, sadly. Okay. Anything else about the TLP? Or the RPTP and the RLTP? I've got a few things, but I'll let the rest have to say first. You might cover off stuff that I need to talk about. Yes, Steve?
Just on, so we had our 3-year plan submission, and it was very, very strong from the community that they want us to cut our cloth, get rid of wants and just have what we really need, not like to haves. To me, it was very clear in that. And even here on page 85, 86, we're looking at funding the Tairāwhiti and then another full-time, travel plan officer. I mean, I plan my own travel. Kids go to school, I'll jump on the bike and go to school with them, say, use this crossing, use this crossing. But I don't think we really need a travel plan officer. And we had Mark Harris come, he's given us this photo the footpaths on the way to his school. And he's also talked about the lack of crossings and how unsafe it is for kids to go to school. So, to me, if you fix this footpath, if you put in crossings, it's going to be safe for kids to go to school and they want to go to school. But I suggest we use that money to fix the footpaths and make safe routes. It'll do the job itself. If you've got a safe route, more people are going to travel to school. It's hard to promote kids going to school when it's unsafe. And just in terms of the community really wanting us to cut the cloth, saying everyone's laying off workers, council should be laying off workers too, and here we are hiring people that I feel isn't a necessity. It's just my thoughts. Other councillors might think differently.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other point on that? Councillor Gregory?
I am very, very supportive of the Te Wero Wednesday Challenge program, and I think it's a great thing to invest into. We had a great submission on that and how it has changed things for teachers in the classrooms, how it changes a mindset in the people, and I've also took part in it myself for a month, and it does change your mindset, because you think when you walk out the door, oh, actually I could bike there, which I had never thought of so often before taking part in that. So I'd disagree with your point, Councillor Thompson.
Are we suggesting, are we talking about funding them with, supporting them with money, or are we looking at supporting them with something else?
Supporting them with
There is
funding.
something like that, yeah. But ultimately, that's a decision that council will need to make into a three-year plan. So
60k, is it? Over 3 years,
It
or
was 100.
100k over 3 years? Could we support them in helping them to find money somewhere else, like Tairāwhiti? Or something?
Through the chair, I believe they did go to Trust Tairāwhiti.
Do they have funding?
Presentation that Harley Double came and they provided to council. So I guess the question is, and across the details, whether or not they're through the RLTP avenue, there's additional funding that's made available that will lessen the council contribution in there, or is this fully council funded? Staff had made the recommendation to include that.
yeah, so my understanding there would be a contribution as well from TA if it was in the RLTP and in an appropriate activity class. I'm just trying to actually find the relevant line to what it is.
This one too, yes?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I would note that it would also depend on the alignment with the GPS. And the way the current GPS is sitting, I wouldn't see much alignment for that. I would note that any transport-related activities should be in your RLTP, whether they're a GPS priority or not. However, the GPS will dictate what gets funded. So that's something to keep in mind, because, and we did ask for all the activities, whether it's funded through NLTF or other sources, to be included, because as we all know, PGF, transport choices, whatever funding options become available, those activities need to be in your RLTP in order to be considered. So even if it wasn't a priority, but it was something aligned with your community, you would probably want to keep that activity in there. But I wouldn't anticipate a share on something like that in the current state.
Thank you.
I think as well, just through you, Chair, if there's not local funding available, you definitely wouldn't get NZTA share. So that would be the point to note. It's a partner approach.
Okay. Yes, Stevie?
Yeah, I just want to know, I feel this is a nice to have it in our recovery, maybe down the track after our recovery, but I think it's hard to say to these farmers who've got no access to their farms, their livelihood's gone, we're funding like to school Wednesdays. We're hiring a travel plan officer. I think it's just a tough pill for these people really struggling to swallow at the moment. Like I'm all for biking. My kids bike all the time. I bike all the time. But I'm all for these cycleways. But the timing's not now. We're in recovery mode, and I just don't feel that this is a priority like right now. Debbie mentioned Harley coming and promoting it. We also have to remember he's promoting his own job. Without this, there goes his job type thing. So we also have to remember he's.
Yeah, that was probably nothing that we need, not appropriate to bring up.
Sorry, I apologise.
I think what we support the program, but again, this is a 10-year strategy. Am I reading the SDB?
This is for the next 3 years.
Can I just tell you that the funders for that program is Mercury Energy, and then there is the other small, very small funders are the Tairāwhiti Community Environment Centre, Rautipura Tairāwhiti Advisory Schools, Gisborne District Council, Sport Tairāwhiti, and Healthy Families East Cape. And to me, it's a small amount of money for the gains that you get from something like that. I wouldn't like to see it taken out of the RLTP because I definitely wouldn't like to see that.
Yeah, I'm hearing both sides, and I'm getting that. I'm just wondering again, it's about if we keep it in the plan, but we're saying that this is a 10-year plan, up to a 10-year plan. We've already talked about that in regards to the other kaupapa that we've already discussed. So it's not that like the pay cashless ticketing is not happening tomorrow or even next year.
Yeah, through the chair, you can keep it in your plan. It doesn't commit you, or the council, or NZTO, or anyone to fund it.
Yes.
That's the key issue. And those will be decisions made by those authorities at the relevant time. And the question is, does the RLTP want to support an initiative that meets one of the objectives of the RLTP around improving access and sustainability?
So the thinking here, it says continuation for the next 3 years. So it's not down the track, it's continuation for the next 3 years. And also, are we, as a travel plan officer, is that a separate funding, or is that part of this? And how do you feel about a travel plan officer?
I just need to correct something, could I?
I'll just get an answer to Teddy's question first. I'm really long.
Sorry.
Is the travel plan officer, can somebody confirm, is that part?
What page is that?
Page 86, in this section 3.7, GDC has identified funding to appoint a travel plan officer to work with partners to implement initiatives in schools, workplaces and other locations.
Should staff that have been responsible for this commentary able to provide comment on that, thanks?
Didn't write it, but I am happy to speak to the fact that we have allocated a role to look at walking and cycling program management across the council, which is effectively utilising our existing agreements with the likes of Tairāwhiti Adventure Trust and TTT, forming those partnerships and working towards future walking and cycling initiatives, but utilising existing funding. So it's not a future, but it's not a new funding stream as such.
So, through the chair, the wording that's here is actually reflective of the role. So what it's saying here is that this is a funding to appoint a travel plan officer, whereas what Michelle's talking about is a program manager across our actual walking and cycling work. So if I understand correctly, it's going to be tagged on to what that person is doing in the program management space, Michelle.
I suspect so. I didn't know that.
Travel plan person.
Can we get some more information on that?
It's when the mysterious person steps forward, whoever wrote it.
Clarity.
Clarity, sorry.
So I think what we've come to is that we support Te Wero Ia Wenarei, but it is not a need in this next little time frame. It's not a priority in terms of all of the other things that we have on our plate. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, that's good.
Oh, Charlotte, thank you. Thank you.
No, all good. So just on the 3.7, so it has changed a little bit since the initial draft, which is, I guess, where the commentary differs. So we can update it to reflect the, I guess, what the current intent is. In terms of the Te Wero Ia Wenarei, I guess it's just direction from the committee in terms of any changes to that part of 3.7.
Thank you. I just wanted to correct something. The main funder for it is Trust Tairāwhiti.
Still. Yes, Linda.
Just one final kind of comment on it, because there's maybe kind of two streams of thought here. The RLTP is developed as per your community vision that you're setting out for your regional transport plan for the next 10 years. It is really important that it reflects, that vision reflects the view of what you want your system to look like, and then the plan is how you're going to get there. There's two things in there, is to make sure that everything that's contained in there will help you achieve that. There's also as well the practicalities around it of, is it aligned to the GPS? Now, this one was developed as we were going through getting a new GPS and new government. So we just got to sense check the likelihood of securing funding. But to officers' advice earlier, if it's not in the plan, it makes it really hard to secure funding from other sources as well. So we're just want to be really, really clear that things like walking and cycling have been indicated as not a priority for this government. However, other sources of funding come up.
Yeah.
When it comes to priorities, though, and I think this is where there's mixed views here, priorities on ensuring, walking and cycling is supported, or are we, more focused on recovery, for example, or rebuild? This is a process to make sure that we're clear about, what we want to achieve, but that prioritisation happens. Do you want to attribute money to it through your LTP, and where does it land with NZTA in our prioritisation process? So I think there's multiple drivers kind of here on differences of, what should come first and where we should spend our money on, but ultimately that decision is made through your LTP process, and does it get prioritised by NZTA? So I'm kind of weighing up the risk of inclusion or not inclusion, in short. Really.
Yeah.
It's not going to get decided here.
Advice?
My personal advice would be keep it in the plan, because you might get a bucket of funding that comes up that, if it's not in the plan, you're not going to get the money for it, would be my guidance.
And this goes beyond government terms as well. You might get a different block next time and it's a different whakaaro, but if it's not there.
Yeah. I mean, just to be really clear, like, it doesn't well align to this GPS, but that's not to say that something doesn't come up in the future, and you could be just noting that we've got different drivers around the table here.
If it's not there, then it won't be considered for anything in the future because it's not there.
I'm happy to leave it there. I just don't see this as a priority over our recovery right now, but I'm happy to leave it there, but I wouldn't be happy to commit rates over our recovery.
Yeah, I think we probably all on the same page when it comes to that, Teddy, around prioritising our recovery. But to Linda's point, not to lose it, not to chuck it out, chuck the baby out with the bathwater, because if it's out, then should the opportunity come up for funding from somewhere else, it doesn't align with the GPS current government, unlikely to be funded. But all of that detail is we don't have to worry about right now. But if we take it out, then it's gone. If we leave it in, it's got opportunity later on down the track to get some traction, some funding. So are we in support of leaving Te Wero Ia Winarei in? We need Charlotte to massage the wording around what we currently see in front of us.
We can always have this argument again when we have the 3-year plan.
Yep. But at least it'll be in there, because if we take it out, then it's not there at all. Are we in agreement?
I am.
To leave it in there, but it's not a priority.
Yeah, well, we'll just, if it's saying we're not committing to actually spending money on it, it's there to go for a project.
Well, we might not get any money, is what
Well,
Linda's saying.
If it was deploying a person, that costs money, so it's just clarifying where Teddy was coming as well.
Yeah, so I think that wasn't explained to us by Michelle and Charlotte, how that was supposed to be in there. All right, next Taki. Yes, go on. This is the time and the place, let's do it.
So we're not going to be just page 79, just on the implementing priority investment area 3.1, implement new Gisborne urban bus network. If we go down to the third point, subject to increase it. In the middle there, the new services to parts of the city not currently served. Can I just clarify, all these areas that have got a red are in red with a cross through, are they pieces that have been taken out?
I had a question about that too. Keyword pulls.
Is that correct or not?
That was my assumption.
Because it just says there that talking about the new bus service routes that are looking at being included, and our opinion keyword pools has been taken out, but we move on to the next page, the very next page I think it is, where there's a bus route that carries on talking about new bus routes, and one of the third routes is to our opinion to the keyword pools.
Yeah.
So I was just a little bit confused, and I thought, hang on a minute, am I reading this? Are these red lines through the thing? Are they not pieces that are taken out? I just have clarification because there's a lot through the whole plan.
Yeah, I
Presume they are.
Yeah, so that's right. So basically, anything that's crossed through, that is suggested we take it out.
So we're taking the keyword pools out, and on the next page it says that we've got it in.
So with keyword pools, what we're proposing is that one of the existing routes is extended to keyword pools, so it wouldn't actually be a new route. So that's why we're taking it out when we say new services to the city, because it would actually be the existing service extended to keyword pools. That's why.
So it would be a bus stop, but there already is a route that goes past there. Is that what you're saying?
No, there's a route at the moment that doesn't go past there, but we're looking to extend that within the existing budget so it can serve keyword pools. So this was the work that we did on the bus network review, actively managing efficient use of buses and the drivers to be able to serve keyword pools as one of the 3 proposed revised routes. It wouldn't be a new route essentially, we could do it within existing budgets.
Okay, so page 79. Shouldn't have had keyword pools out of Pindi. Because it's mentioned.
It was just confusing, that's all. It's just
Yeah.
looking at going, it comes up in the plan that we are getting, one of the routes is going to keyword pools, so I was just a little bit confused there.
Yes, no, that's fair. I'm sure we can have a look at that. Just
And I did query the one about Gisborne Airport is still in. Just query the actual of how many people are actually going to would use that service. There's obviously been work done on to come up with any route. There's obviously needs to have been work done on to see where the demand is. So, has there been work done to say that the Gisborne Airport is potentially has got the need? Because I struggle to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, sorry, through the chair, there's always a lot of demand in any urban area for the same in Hawke's Bay, same in Newcombe, and you had quite a few submissions which also mentioned it here as well. So yes, we know when the planes come in and out, and we know that there are various staff members. So what we could do effectively is provide a service using our existing school buses outside school times to run to the airport. So effectively you wouldn't need a new bus, you could use an existing bus. What you'd pay for is the fuel and the driver. You certainly would need to work with the airport to understand whether it is actually viable, because recently, for example, Hamilton Airport, Waka Regional Council introduced a on-demand service and effectively a subsidised taxi, and that didn't perform very well. So if you're talking, this is just a personal view, I'm somewhat sceptical about airport services, but it's something we will look at, we will try and understand the demand, but it may not be the highest priority if any additional funding is available, because we will probably look to put it into improving the existing routes of people, making them more frequent, because that drives better damage. So I'm kind of with you, but we want to leave it in there because it is a possibility.
Okay. You going to get him down your list there, Councillor Kilfer?
Someone else better go.
Councillor Gregory?
No, I'm good. I'm happy to move it.
Oh, I'm going to have my
Oh,
say.
sorry.
Linda?
I'm still in.
Okay. Oh, well, right. Well, I've got I just picked up a few of my posts, but I'll send those through to Charlotte. Well, of course, I'll pick up on our rural stuff. Just in regards to, it was the page 33, around rural patient transport and, oh sorry, page 30, down the bottom, rural patient transport and access to specialist services on the East Coast. Just about access to specialist services, specialist appointments. Also things like A&E, dentists, maternity, physio. There's a whole lot of health services that are currently not accessible for rural whānau, whether that's the East Coast or the other way, to Te Karakia, Miwai, Matawai. That's that comment. The other one was around on page 70, social and community wellbeing and recovery. My comment around that was it's good to see a cross-regional lens to recovery, and just that our services are equitable in terms of access to services, not just based on population. The further away you are from public services, the more vulnerable you are to being able to access them. So just wanted to make that point. There was a thing about, what is rat running on page 52?
Rat running?
Sound like an idiot.
No.
I felt like an idiot. What's rat running?
An old English phrase, I think. So this is where local routes are used by people to cut through to avoid maybe congestion. Things like that.
Oh.
So they might go down a local residential street rather than go around the street that they should do. That's rat running.
Right.
See, I wasn't the only one who wanted
No.
Everybody did. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
No, there isn't.
Just shows you that we read our papers.
Right, and I just wondered, under the current GPS and the government, we refer to Waka Kotahi throughout this document, and whether we should be changing that to your official name, NCTA.
Through you, Chair, I think it would be appropriate. We're now officially known as the New Zealand Transport Agency, Waka Kotahi.
Okay, so that can be noted, please. We don't want to upset. And just on page 33, again, I think it talked about, no, it wasn't page 33, it was another page about public transport. Just to note that in passenger services up the coast, there aren't any Cook's Couriers as the current passenger service that comes daily, and that will soon be non-existent. They'll be closing soon. In terms of just giving more, reasoning to support a public bus or community shared service continuing to work to get our people up the coast and to away in other areas. Page 52, 3.8. 52, 3.8. Oh, I can't even read. Oh, no, it wasn't that page. Good grief. Anyway, it talked about, it's to do with the sea and rail routes, and it has the phrase, where appropriate. Who determines what's appropriate?
Through the chair, I would say anyone who is willing to support the investment. So if it comes to freight routes, and of course we have a mothballed rail line which has been so since 2012, there are pressures to look at reopening that to freight in particular, but fundamentally it's for the government and Kiwi Rail as the asset owner really to decide whether that's viable from their perspective. We can certainly advocate as a council and as a region to say we'd like to see that as an option, but it is ultimately down to those folks to decide whether that's a priority compared to any other thing that they're looking to fund. So I guess that phrase, it's used a lot, probably too much, but it's to try and make sure that we do give we don't give the impression that this is just something that will, automatically happen if we say we want it, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, James. Page 76, down the bottom, it talks about Arapai, achievement of the target for learner licences in urban, learner restricted, I guess full, in urban Tairāwhiti, and I just wonder why there is no mention there of rural Tairāwhiti, and whether there needs to be, or are we just talking about that particular program? I think about, I'm no longer conflicted because I don't work for them, but Tairāwhiti run rural, the GDL program for rural communities, right out to Kotahi, down to Muriwai and up to Waka. And I just don't see any rural licensing stuff in here.
Yeah, so through the chair, I think this one, there was someone who advised me that particular activity only applied in urban Tairāwhiti. Is that wrong?
That one does.
That one does, but in other words, there's another one that we should be looking at. Right, okay. What was the name of that?
Tairāwhiti Re.
Okay, well,
I can send you the info.
Yeah, please, that would be great.
Or Linda could. Yeah. But yes, that's a program that's been going for a number of years. That's had a lot of success in helping people gain their up to their full licences, but specifically focuses on rural areas, not city.
Great.
Okay. Keep that's back on. Where is the East Coast Connectivity business case, please? It's being referred to, and I just haven't.
Yeah.
Did we see that?
It is not. It doesn't exist yet. It is a bid. It is in TO because I just checked. So this would be an opportunity, if it was funded, to assess the potential role of both sea and rail in connecting this region, particularly with Hawke's Bay. So it's a bid, but not guaranteed funding. There's a moderation process to go through, and we will wait to see if that's funded or not.
So does this committee get to see that?
Well, yes. I mean, if the
has it been written? I mean,
no, it's not been written.
Okay.
It doesn't exist. So clearly, if it was funded,
yeah,
then there would be this committee would be to have oversight of that.
Thank you. I'm getting down my list too. Page 93. just around the local roading, recovery, is that recovery and resilience package, is that for all of our 1,014 kilometres of rural roads? Is that what that is? 725 million.
So just to confirm, that was that's the bundle, unless there's another one that's specifically listed in there. So it's bundled together, and that was the figure at the time. And as James mentioned, we will be updating the figures.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Was it up for something else too?
Oh, no, I just put it up and then I realised you probably couldn't see me.
Big yellow hand up for something. Thank you. And I'm nearly there. Page 130. Somewhere it mentions about the, what is it? The courier service, there's far up there, no council funded services doing State Highway 35 in the East Coast communities as far as Wharikahika. Nice, but yeah, we just remember the end of our top of our region is Pōtaka. Everybody knows where that is now because we've been there. So, so if we can just make that little change, that would make the people there very happy.
Happy to do that. Yep.
Thank you. And I just note too that while it's said that in the plan on page 5, the regulating obligations under the Treaty of Waitangi with our partners would be mentioned, it's not there.
Oh.
Only somebody can point it out to me. I couldn't see any difference.
Should be.
But if that could be inserted in both plans, that would be...
I definitely wrote it, so if it's not in there, then I have the text available.
Thank
so, yeah, we'll make sure, because that is very important. Big key piece of feedback.
Thank you. And just my last thing, I guess, in terms of, think back to the submissions, the plan, the impassioned submissions we received from people who had travelled a long way, our rural communities, both ends of the coast. Where and how are those, do they see themselves in this plan in terms of us having listened to them? I'm thinking about our ones who came from Hotu and then don't know if they got home that day because it was raining. They were worried about that. And also our whānau from Waiwatitini. Where is it that they see those, all that trouble they came to come to see us, where do they see themselves reflected back in our plan? I couldn't see it.
Well, the next item we're talking about is the Strategic Network Resilience business case, which is a really good opportunity to take all of that input that we've had and actually now say, what are we going to do with it? So I would actually say reflect their needs in what we're doing moving forward. Clearly happy to put in any further case studies or examples of the challenges that people are facing. We've got some good ones, both from that submission and other stuff I've seen, so I'm more than happy to do that in this plan. That's a very easy thing to be able to do.
Thank you. I think that would be great, just to see more of, because I want to make sure that they
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Any other, I'll have a brief, any other? Oh, it's between, oh gosh, they've all got their hands up. We'll start with Debbie, she's and then we'll move around.
I just would like to just get some clarity in this meeting, because it is in our agenda, point 3.6 on page 86 with regards to the Streets for People project, and it just says including making Grey Street and Uawa Tolaga Bay permanent, but I understand that that sentence maybe isn't completely correct. Which someone
Sorry,
could,
which page are you on, Debbie?
it is page 86.3.6, Gisborne City and Township Act of Management.
So you're questioning the word permanent?
Yes, yes, that's all.
Okay.
At this stage.
Yes, so through the chair, that statement reflects that the first 2 years are a trial. So if that trial is unsuccessful, there is no permanency of the project. So while it says, where are we?
Page 86.
There was like looking at it.
3.6.
Now, while it says it's a permanent project, will only be conditional on whether the trial works through.
Would we add in that then?
You could add in that to make that clear.
Thanks.
Correct, Bill and L'Oreal?
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'm not this sure if there's a place to discuss this or a meeting, but it's just, yeah, it seems like the goalpost has really changed. We were told that, yeah, it's just a trial. It's, yeah, after a few weeks, if something's not working, we can change it just like that, and that's the beauty of this. There's never mention of a 2-year trial. There's never, we're told very minimal cost. I'm not sure if this is the place to be discussing this, or we'd better to take it out and put it into our meeting.
So just so that everyone who's listening as well, we have received a number of submissions, and following on from the submissions, we've also had a number of our councillors and myself have received a number of concerns around what's the current layout of Grey Street, and not just this committee but the other councillors as well. So what has been decided is that we will have a wider discussion outside of the RTP next week with our full council, so that we can further deliberate this conversation. So in terms of moving, we're taking out the permanent.
Yes, that's all I wanted to talk about.
And in terms of moving to adopt the plan, I need some advice, Nadine.
So, go back to the recommendations. And is the key, where did you land on the Wednesday, yeah.
The Wednesday, I think we landed where it will stay,
Yep.
but it's not a priority. So we want, in this recovery time.
Yep,
So we
okay.
didn't want to throw it out completely because we need it there, should, as Linda advised, if it's in the plan, we might not get funding from under the current GPS it doesn't align, but further down the track there could be funding might pop up from somewhere, and if it is in the plan, then there's an opportunity there to apply for that money or bid for it. If it's not in the plan, then we can't, there's nothing there for it, but we do support it. But it's not a hot topic for us. Our key focus still is around recovery, fixing the things that are broken, like footpaths, and making it safer for people to move around. So that's that bit. Was there something else we needed to clarify?
Well, if you were generally okay with the recommendations, then those recommendations stand, but if there was any general consensus about what you've spoken about today, for example, the LGBT routes, then that's something we would need, will need to amend the recommendation if there is a consensus to do that. Given what we've talked about in focus and work program and other great stuff.
Yes, Rob.
Just page 81. Page 81, can I just have clarification? I might have missed this, so it may be me not listening. But there's talk around the key actions on page 81. around the new Gladstone Road bus, of securing funding for the new Gladstone Road bus hub. That's bringing it onto the main street, obviously. All I really want to know, has this actually been all consulted on as the business owners that potentially be affected by having buses? Has that all been done?
Not yet.
So this is an idea.
An idea, and
so if we're talking about securing funding for it, it's almost as if it's been decided and we're going out and securing funding for it.
No, I think what we're trying to imply there is that we need to understand whether there could be funding available, and if not, then there isn't actually any point in progressing it any further, and we'll keep it on Bright Street.
Okay. So we just had that a little bit worded a little bit different.
That's
just,
yeah.
I'd hate to see someone come and say, what are you putting a bus in front of my shop for them? And I've got to deal with that too, so I'm trying to limit the carnage. Right, that's fine. Just 88, I think, might have been something mentioned earlier. Page 88, just on rebrand council's public transport network. Was that what was that before? I'll just query the timing and cost of rebranding anything is expensive, and the reason behind why we would rebrand council's public transport network.
Through the chair, I think the thinking is that with a new contract, there is an opportunity to work with the operator to see whether there are opportunities to make that brand more visible. Now, at this stage, no decisions again have been taken, and my personal view is that DigiBus works quite well. But it is something that I think is worth discussion at some point in the future, but there's no guarantee that we will change it.
Are there issues with people not knowing what GiziBus is? I'm just wondering, is...
My perception, the people I talk to, is yes, there is, but that's maybe because there are very few services at the moment, and maybe the services could be promoted more widely. So there's a variety of factors at play here. Personally, good one. It does what it needs to. So for me, it is very much about when we are going out and hopefully improving our services, we need to tell people that they are actually improved, and they don't just think they're the same old services that we've always had. So that for me is the priority.
I guess my view around that is sometimes if you change the brand, there's unfamiliarity and you don't know what it is, as opposed to sticking with the brand and building up the promotion around it and comms around it too, and improving that service rather than spending the money on branding. Again, as Councillor Thompson and others have raised, it's a want.
Nice to have.
Fine. Just one, hopefully last one.
Okay.
Just on page 113, it's actually 112 and 113. But on 113, if you're looking at the graph there, this is the state highway improvements. Just page 113, looking at the Tairāwhiti Wara resilience rebuild. The figures there, 35 million, 30 million, and then it adds up to 100,000. So I'll just, and then the next line is pretty similar, but adds up to 75,000. There's actually $100 million missing there.
Oh, that's a little
quite a lot.
Put the zeros in it.
Through the chair, those figures would have changed substantially anyway now, because those were based on the previous draft statement of investment proposal rather than the new one. But nevertheless, the point is well made to make sure those figures do add up wherever they are. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
Just adding up.
Yeah.
Add up both columns. One has been, but the other's not. No, that's been done for now. Hopefully.
For now, okay. Any other? Yes, Teddy.
Just page 72, it mentions the logging truck routes and significant pressure on roads and priority investment. It just mentions Gladstone Road and Grey Street. I don't think forestry trucks down Gladstone Road and Grey Street, but I'd suggest we and the Esplanade there. That's probably the main route in terms of priority funding.
Oh, so down the bottom there, priority investment area 2.2.
Yeah, I'd say we don't get forestry trucks down Glaston Road or Grey Street, but we do get them down Esplanade.
Thanks, that.
Okay. Another go?
Sorry, just a minor thing. Page 124, it mentions the 21-24 GPS. Should we not be uploading it to the new GPS now, or are we?
What do you want?
What page was that?
124. So it says reference it to alignment with the old GPS, but I think we should be
Yeah, I thought that too, actually.
now aligning with our new GPS because it's changed quite significantly.
You just need to make sure it's currently in draft. It hasn't yet been adopted, so it'll be the draft GPS 2024 at the time when you adopt these.
Yes. So we would just change that as the, well, that's what it currently is in draft form. Right, okay, thank you. Right, I want to move us along because we've still got more things to discuss. So we are, here's all the words there for me, I'm sure. Page.
Question with regards to the recommendations.
Sure.
So what we're recommending this to our full council, and when it goes to full council, does the whole plan come with it? Yeah. It's not just that.
No.
No, that's the whole plan.
And we will be making quite a few amendments
Yes.
between now and then, so the whole plan will need to be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm also happy to move that recommendation with the changes that are going to be made.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. So this is not the final then?
That's not quite.
So we're taking that word out of the recommendations, is it not the final?
It could be.
Oh.
So it could be. But again, I just need to get a bit of steer from you in terms of the HBT routes around whether you're leaving it as is or whether there's further discussion you want in consideration by council. Because then you're adopting the final RLTP subject to the amendments.
Okay.
I just have concerns about us pushing to do the heavy traffic route under the circumstances that we're under with the recovery and all of the bridges, everything that needs to be done, and I pick up the vibes that it's going to be a lot more work and money, and I just wonder if we should back off it a little bit and re-look at it again once we're out of this hole.
The way that I was reading it was that we would keep it in the plan, but again, it's not a priority. It's not like happening in the next 3 years while we're in recovery, but it needs to be in there so that it, like the wero ia wenare is not completely thrown out and then it's not there. Because we don't want to lose it. We want it in there, but it doesn't, but it's not a top of the list priority, is it?
Is it 100% Waka Kotahi cost being state highway, or are we sharing that cost?
There are some upgrades that we need to make to our own network in terms of the safety. So if that's the case, then your recommendations as it is, you just will remove minor because there are clearly some changes that need to be made, and it's subject to the amendments as discussed. Just play around with that. In the minutes will record those amendments.
Okay, so the Regional Transport Committee recommends that Council adopts the, am I saying final? It's not final. Adopts the Tairāwhiti Regional Land Transport Plan subject to amendments.
As discussed.
As discussed today. And B, we adopt the Tairāwhiti Regional Public Transport Plan subject to amendments. Again, as discussed today. have a seconder? Teddy?
Can I just get some confirmation on Grove Street? We're not committing to a 2-year trial or anything. That's going to be fully discussed in our next meeting.
Okay, we've asked that the word permanent be removed, and we've asked that, and we're saying that we will be discussing that in greater detail next week.
So we're not committing to nothing here.
Through the chair, the project's we're in implementation phase, so that's in
numerous
now.
issues with consultation and everything.
Well, then that needs to be discussed at the next meeting, not the RLTP process.
Yeah, that would go to ops.
That's going to sustainable next week on Thursday.
Yeah. Okay, so
Can we remove it altogether and then discuss it?
it's already, the point is that it's already underway, so it's already there. The trial is already begun, so then it goes to the sustainable Tairāwhiti.
Yeah, my issues is how it sort of got off the ground in the first place. I'd struggle to support it in any way whatsoever.
So what are the consequences of if we were to remove that from what you're suggesting you're wanting to do?
That's what, until we can have proper consult, because it doesn't align with the government policy statement instead in terms of promoting economic growth and everything else. We've got numerous submissions from businesses and everything else. So.
Have you got a mover and a seconder for the motion? So then I suggest you put the motion and then if a councillor doesn't agree, then they don't need to vote for it. We can have further discussions this time round.
Who's seconded? Oh, sorry. So Debbie moved it. So that's the adoption of the plan, both plans subject to the amendments that we've talked about. Noting that we are having a wider discussion about the submissions and the concerns that the community has raised about the Streets for People project at the Sustainable Tairāwhiti hui next week. It is still in the plan though, because it's already actioned. It's gone at A, is that right? It's not strategic. This is a strategic committee. It's already underway. So what we're dealing with is not a strategic issue, it's more down into the sustainable Tairāwhiti.
It's mentioned specifically in here, so I feel we have the opportunity to discuss it more than just being a strategic level in terms
Well, I think I probably...
similar to how we've discussed the Wednesday thing and everything else.
Yeah. Let's put it, Debbie moved it. Do we have a seconder? I'll second it. Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Your hands. 2, 3, 4. Now, 1, 2.
So are you approving it?
I get to vote, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So I won because it's 3 against.
Yeah.
So there you go, let's move on.
So the vote is to, what I just said, around the adoption of the plans, but we are having further discussions about this next week. The operation, right, and all of the submissions and concerns that our people have. So it's not removed from the plan. All right. So we are moving on to reports of the Chief Executive and staff for information. Oh, sorry, let's have a 2-minute toilet break. Don't go and a coffee.
Tried your best. I thought that up
Sorry, this toilet break. Here she is. Here she is. Tim was saved by the bell. Back for Nadine. So, just reminding we can move now to reports of the Chief Executive. We're on page 170. paper 24-114, future resilience for road equipment plan. And who have I got talking to this? Is that you, Charlotte? Oh,
Can be.
sorry,
There you
oh,
go.
you're on the hot seat today, eh?
Sorry about that.
Join us.
So, yep, giving another crack now. Okay. Sit down. Okay. Right, thank you for the opportunity to present this report. I'll keep it brief. Hopefully you'll have a chance to read the report, so I won't go through it in detail, but did want to make a couple of brief observations. Firstly, would like to very much thank our partners at NZTA for providing funding for this particular business case, because it is something that is really important for the future of this region. We're going on with looking at what resilience actually means in the future, and that's really a key issue, is what do we mean by resilience. And I'm very conscious that sometimes that word is thrown around really quite lazily. People say, people are very resilient, fine. That's not what we mean, and that's not the phrase that I want people to think about when we're talking about resilience. We're very much looking at how does the future transport system better cope with the pressures that are going to be put on it, particularly from severe weather, from climate change, and from all the activities that will need to be undertaken through economic growth and all that sort of thing. So this is really about supporting the recovery process by looking further into the future and understanding what resilience will look like in particular areas and particular routes. And fundamentally that means understanding the challenges that our communities are going to face, how future land use of the region will evolve, and also the key lifelines that people will need in the event of further severe weather. So ultimately what we're looking to do here is work out a prioritisation approach to future investment. So we're going to have a whole heap of people saying that their particular issues are really important and should be top of any investment programme in the future. And the reality is that the money will be limited, and so we'll have to find a way of understanding how those priorities can best be fitted within the money we do have available. And that's very much looking at what levels of service are needed for particular routes and areas, and what can ultimately be delivered. What I would like to do is highlight a particular business case that's already been done. This is Marlborough, and there is a reference to this document in the report. So Marlborough have been through this process quite recently, following their severe weather events a few years ago, and essentially that document is looking to understand which routes need to be the highest priority for investment in what we call asset protection. That is trying to find a way of designing those routes so that there is little or no disruption in the future. And sadly that won't be possible everywhere, and the business case in Marlborough makes it clear that some routes will actually have to be left to a lower level of service, and there may need to be alternatives. And in the case of Marlborough, actually, there's quite a lot of reference to sea travel as well, because of the geography of that particular area. So not necessarily the same here, but it just makes the point that we need to look at different ways as to how people can travel about and what level of service that they may need or can expect from the transport system. So a key issue here again, and it comes back to public engagement, and this business needs to be very open and transparent about the issues that we face and the hard decisions and trade-offs we need to make. So we're looking at doing a couple of public engagement exercises, one probably in around October this year, in terms of going out and learning what we've seen so far from the recovery process, and in particular from the community recovery plans, and then talking to communities about what the future might look like and what kind of transport system they actually need and what we can provide. Once we've done the technical work, go out to public consultation probably in about March next year with a series of options, which again this document did exactly the same, and effectively got people to rank those and understand the trade-offs involved. So that's basically what I really want to say in terms of this work. I appreciate at the moment that it's quite generic, and one thing we are going to go into in more detail in about 3 weeks' time is a session, I think, with councillors to go through the scope in detail. But in the report I have put in a summary table which sets out effectively my views about what's in scope and what's out, but they're only my views and they're not correct or definite. So very keen either today or certainly at the meeting on the 5th of June to get councillors' feedback on the scope and whether you are comfortable that it is actually focusing on the right areas. It's one of these projects that could take in a whole lot more stuff, but is it the right project to do that, or is there another project that better sorts it out? So that's what we wanted to say. Yeah, happy to take questions, particularly on the scope or.
Thank you, James. For that work, I'm happy to see that it's not costing us any money, and thank you to NZTA for your contribution to making this happen. I think it's absolute necessity to do some future proofing of our network. Councillors, our committee, any questions? Yes, Linda.
Future resilience.
Yeah.
Just clarification on the scope. There are some things in there, and it might be I'm not up to speed with how we're approaching this, that are I'm querying around fibre optic cellular satellite communications. The native planting and water courses and things I can kind of see, but I would like to understand that more. But we've also got stock banks in there too. So just wondering if how broad we're going beyond transport assets and infrastructure, especially when we're talking about communications infrastructure.
Yeah, so when I was talking about things like communications and stock banks, it's only where it has a direct impact or interface with the transport system. So the communications one, I was quite interested to understand, particularly for communications and emergency response, when there is a severe event. Is it a good idea, if possible, to protect those communications so that they don't fail, and so that we keep information flows going throughout a weather event? Is that a thing we actually want to look at in this business case, or is it actually best dealt with somewhere else? Because the communications, I think, did fail quite significantly in the last weather event. And is it something that actually a resilience business case should be looking at? So it's very much up for discussion, in my view.
I think from NZTA perspective, the thinking is right, whether it's something that would be funded out of the National Land Transport Fund or not for inclusion. It sounds like it's a broader resilience case than just transport, would be my view. I'm happy to be countered by Officer.
Certainly, sorry, that's
Certainly member. So we were.
While they're having the conversation, I just say through the chair, this is something that we had discussed previously when we were setting up the scope of or just the high level, that it was really around our owning assets, and the broader stuff can be picked up by other civil defence resilience works.
Yeah, through your chair, I was just going to note, because obviously we're doing a lot of resilience work around the region, and stock banks is a regular thing that we're encountering. Types of activities, we're actually working alongside our partners to ensure that our asset is protected, and but we're not funding those types of things. So I would just maybe be really cautious on the scoping of it, and if those things are included, we might want to consider how it's being funded and to what extent it's included and relates to the transport system.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Chair. I think from my perspective, if there are supporting measures particularly which may then avoid the need for transport investment, then that should be included in the business case, even though perhaps it isn't necessarily funded through. say is that if, for example, we know there are lots of areas of the region where there are potential landslips and there are issues around how those areas are used in terms of forestry or farming or whatever. So is there a piece which says actually we need to look at how we're using the land and how that may impact on the risks to the roading network, and if we change how we use that land, we change how people move around using that land. Is that something that we can have in the business case as being an intervention or not?
Through your chair, we've got to draw the line somewhere. We're getting more into the kind of district planning and land use side of it there. I think it's appropriate to note that there are a number of things that affect the resilience of the transport system, but trying to resolve or include all of those in a transport business case wouldn't be something that NZTA would support.
Thank you, Linda.
We'd be able to refer, I'm sure you have other resilience plans and strategies within council that we could refer to and link through to rather than duplicating, would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Councillor Alder, take it away.
I've been sitting here waiting for this
Opportunity.
It's a very comprehensive report of all the layers and levels and checks and balances of how we can lay down a sustainable roading system that's going to be resilient to all weather conditions. And on page 84, there's a good statement. The question which our communities keep asking is simple. How can we prevent future severe weather events having such devastating impact? And now, if I leap to page 196, actually you don't need to go to 196, but throughout the intricacies of this plan, the word change comes up on 196. And I'd just like to make the comment that doing the same, doing what we have been doing, is not an option, and that we do need to look at change and how we do approach the resilience of our roading systems. In the recent community consultation, it came through loud and clear from all our rural communities to bring back the roadman. These rural farmers build and fix and maintain their own farm tracks, and they know what is important to maintaining a road, and that is drainage. Anybody who knows anything about roads knows the most important thing is drainage.
I don't want to do that because we're up higher than that. Yeah, I agree, Councillor Gregory. So, but take your point, Councillor Alder, about you need to look change and that this future proofing and looking at how we can have a more sustainable future around our network is really important. We already have that we've made it quite clear in our plans around the issues that you're raising around the drainage. We've put that in there. This is about our future, again, looking at our future resilience.
Okay,
So,
could I say one more thing?
One more thing.
One more thing. We can have all the plans in the world, but unless management listens to the people out there who see what is happening, we're going to carry on getting the same result. And what we're hearing is that there's some fundamentals in management and of the road system is not being carried out. Thank you.
Okay. What I want to thank you, James, for this paper. I appreciate that it's generic and that there's I look forward to seeing the more detail and taking those notes about the scope. This is just a paper for noting, right?
It's paper for noting. No decision.
Okay. So then we note that we've received that and look forward to having more information around it. Okay. Waka Kotahi. I'll move that. Oh, sorry. Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you. Now on to
Thank you, Chair.
Kaka.
Right, ready to go. It's turned on. Crikey, we'll keep it short and snappy. We've
Thank
had
you, James.
quite a session today. Thank you. Just first up, before we get into it, just want to say a big thank you for the committee's time, for officers' time to join the hui with Nicole Rosé. Was that last week, the week before? Time's flying. Just really appreciate both your time, but your expertise and the contribution to that. I know that Nicole found it really beneficial, so thank you. Thank you to, if you could pass on that thanks to those that are not here that attended. There we go. I wasn't switched on, that was my fault. So just an update on where we're at in the NLTP development. As mentioned earlier, we're still waiting for the draft government policy statement for transport 2024 to be finalised. We are in the process of getting to advise you all of the indicative allocations for continuous programmes. So that's for your maintenance and operations. We are looking to probably have that out. It does say late May, but it's probably going to be more like very early June. That will give you a good indication of what you can expect for the maintenance and your investment in your local road network from NZTA in particular. The others that you've bid for will be out in due course, noting that we do have to have the NLTP adopted in August. We are still, of course, waiting for budget on May 30th. Just an update on where we're at on the state highway investment proposal. So just noting, and it's really good, the previous conversation there, uncertainty on the resilience of both the state highway network, but also your local road network, how that's related to your economic prosperity, social, cultural, environmental aspects as well. The making sure that we're not just mitigating, but trying to resolve some of the impacts of future weather events is a key focus of the recovery work that we've got underway, and also as well for the state highway bid that we've placed in for Tairāwhiti. While that for us is the kind of number one priority for the region, as well, noting the previous discussion around freight, we're also continuing that investigation and pre-implementation of improving that access into the Eastland port, and that will be in conjunction with your council. I would note, and you'll be aware from previous engagements, the TREC recovery and resilience work, so the large business cases, that'll be on State Highway 35, the Mangahuini Gorge, also State Highway 2, Opotiki, and it goes all the way down to your neighbouring region into Napier, and also the connection further south for the Devil's Elbow as well. You'll note that those business cases are for Crown funding and for budget bids, but we have included them in the State Highway investment proposal as well. Maintenance and resilience is a key priority for us, and also noting it's a key priority through the draft government policy statement and for this government. That's really big. We are continuing to make funding decisions. I can't confirm that. I don't know what's happened there. What this does say is we're obviously through to the end of June. We're still in this NLTP period, so we're actively working with your council, but we're trying to make sure that everything we've committed to do gets done by that time, so that we're spin up and ready to start in the next NLTP period for the next 3 years. We are having a look at if there's anything that's likely to overrun into and be rolled over into the next NLTP period. It does have to align with the new government priorities, noting, as councillors have pointed out earlier, they are quite different from the previous GPS. wild. We're back to normal. An update on our safety camera programme. We've had brief chats about this with the safety cameras, so that includes the speed cameras, both static and the mobile ones that are currently across the network, moving from police into NZTA, Waka, Kotahi. We have the first ones beginning to come online in Auckland area at the moment, and I think there'll be ones coming up in the Waikato as well. They'll be getting rolled out over the next 6 to 9 months. We are just, as you'll see, I think it's third bullet point there, any further expansion beyond what we've committed, we're waiting for an indication from this government under the government policy statement as to how they want to approach that and the funding that will be attributed to that. So just to confirm, that's the static ones as well as the mobile ones. It's called safety cameras because it's not purely speed too, so it's things like red lights, etc. Just on that one as well, if we do progress to expansion and there are any indicated for your region, that can be for local roads as well as state highways, and we would work together on that, so we wouldn't just we need to wait and see where they lie on the priorities for the government. And on a related note for speed management, you will be aware that the Minister did confirm that there would be a drafting of a new land transport rule for setting of speed limits. It will be released, we're saying, shortly, and there will be public consultation on that. So we will let you know when that's going to happen, so that both as a Transport Committee and Council you can submit, but also ensuring that we get the views of your community into that. We do expect that the new rule will be signed off and in place by the end of 2024. RLTP significant activities. Just the only thing to note here is that the State Highway 2 Waka Gorge resilience case that is being investigated as part of that State Highway 2 business case that we're putting in for Crown funding as well. Streets for People, bold inclusion. Noting that you've got another workshop, I did just have a couple of things that I would like to take the opportunity to add, and probably more just food for thought rather than debate and discussion necessarily. We have a number of these projects. I think there's 13 different councils across the country, 19 different projects. This is our second round, so this is our second kind of lot of these. We did it in the previous NLTP period as well. And I would just note that one, they are temporary. It's called adaptive urbanism, and it's probably one of the best and most effective ways internationally that you can trial new things on your streets. Without them having to be permanent and without significant investment. The other thing to this is that it does allow you to change and adapt over time. And I see that, you know, as a community member in Palmerston North, we've had that happen as well, that it adapts and then it becomes the norm. The other thing to really bear in mind is the early part of it through construction in the first few months is always really hard. I haven't come across any project where it's not. And I'd encourage you to even connect in with the likes of Napier City Council for their experience. They're on their third project on Streets for People, and their very first one and the last one was one of the most challenging things that they've been through as a council in terms of community feedback on it. It does take communities time to adapt, but also as well we have to be responsive to feedback and actually having a look at what's real, what's perceived, and what's just part of a change process. Noting that we've also got Streets for People up on State Highway 35 in Uawa as well, that's progressing. That's had to go through a few different iterations and changes of design and getting into construction. And that's been a really strongly led, community-led project, and great support from Gisborne District Council on that one as well. The summer maintenance programme, has gone really, really well. Thank you for the great weather here in particular. You'll see that we're almost all complete. I think the only part that's outstanding, and I think that figure needs to be updated now, is the asphalt renewals through Gisborne itself. It's been a huge programme of work, and I would just like to say thank you to your community for patience through the huge number of sites that have been underway and continue, because that's maintenance, and then you've got all of your recovery work happening too. But initial feedback, heading into winter, the network's definitely in a better position than it was. Just on the recovery work, it is continuing. We've got over 173 different sites for recovery, all at different stages, making really, really good progress. So long may continue the good weather. And just to note, of the recovery work, 81% of that recovery work has gone to local contractors. And by local, we do mean we have improved how we're procuring. It is really local when we say on State Highway 35, the contractors that work up and down and have the local knowledge and expertise at particular sites. And similarly on State Highway 2. So we are trying to adapt and respond to make better use of not just local businesses, but local knowledge and expertise. One thing that I would say is our maintenance work is also within the Trek Alliance too. That's done under our normal NOC contracts. We're just trying to manage it more efficiently. So that work is continuing through our normal maintenance contracts and our normal maintenance subcontractors as well. Good progress on some of these sites. I would say though that the feedback is some of them are very challenging and more complex the more you get into them. Works underway, say on Otoko Hill, for example, the recent rains made some of that even more challenging over, this week. But also to just the work on Nesbitt's Dip in Tairāwhiti Township. Working quite closely with both the community as well as with the council here on the best and most appropriate solutions, particularly around flood protection there. State Highway 35, we could get some real-time feedback on there, but I think initially anecdotal feedback from users and from the community is that there has been a noticeable improvement, albeit significant disruption with the number of sites that are there. Just to note that there is a huge effort behind State Highway 35, the Mangahuini area. We've got 7 sites that will be completing over the next few months, 4 months it is. And then another 3 sites up there that are already underway. It's just a community high concern for their community in that area, and it's a very complex site. Some of the work that's underway you can't see, but there is a huge amount of activity happening there. Hikawai Bridges, you'll be aware that we've kind of paused on that. I think there's been some coverage on the work there. The reason for that kind of extended pre-construction phase is to allow more time for the detailed options analysis, so make sure that it's fit for purpose, that the investment is providing good value for money in a fiscally constrained environment, and also as well that we're getting the right level of engagement and input from local contractors and local expertise. We also as well in that area have to ensure that the environmental factors and the ecological factors are taken into account. It is a sensitive area. And then, I think this is lastly, I've done this in real rapid fashion, sorry team. The rebuild work and the business case work. These are continuing. We've had our bids in through Treasury and into the budget round. We are waiting to hear. I can't say any more than that. We're not privy to any further information other than we've done our very best to this point in a very compressed period of time. So thank you very much for your engagement and for that on the community. just one note, we did quite a lot of online engagement, so there was the opportunity for people to jump on in and comment, which was great if you couldn't attend some of the sessions. And we're committing, we should be going back to the community engagement in a summary document, hopefully by the end of this, is this May? Yes. The end of this month. Yeah. And that's all for me, and I'm happy to take any questions. That was rapid.
It was rapid. Just the community feedback I've had in regards to Trek. Started off rough, vastly improved in the last 2 months or so. Prior to that, not good at all. But I want to thank Willis Tamatia, who's sort of been leading that, helping to rebuild bridges, rebuild relationships across the Tairāwhiti. Highway 35 is, this one, well, you know, it's got more traffic lights than Hamilton, but it's in from where it's been to where it is now is, I always ask a lot of people, it's in a lot better state than it's been in a long time. So we get used to you know, travelling a little bit earlier, taking extra time to get to where you have to be. You just can't be in a hurry, just as it is going south down to Napier. So I just want to thank NZTA, but also Trek for going the extra mile, and also I'm looking forward to the results of the survey, the community survey. I know they were working hard and trying to get some the impact of getting some social feedback on in terms of what difference having a Highway 35 in good condition means for you. Socially, the social impact rather than the economic impact. So I'm interested to see what those results might have. Any questions? Yeah, any questions? Councillor Tairāwhiti. And I'm sorry it's taken so long, but we'll wrap this up definitely by 4 o'clock.
Yeah, Linda, look, I think in a whole, overall, we're pretty impressed by a lot of the work that's been done. Trafford's Hill now made a huge difference. Whareras is improving massively. But the one query from all the work that's been done, and we travelled up the coast the other day, you know, it is certainly a big improvement on what it was 5 or 6 months ago. But the one query that I have got, and I've had so much feedback coming from the State Highway to Marae Taha, shoulder widening, where everybody thought this was going to be a passing lane. Land was bought from the farmer, fence this way over here, and we've ended up with more or less a piece on the side of the road, which is as wide as a cycleway. Truckies, massive feedback from truckies that they almost feel obliged to pull over on it to let people pass, but you're pulling over onto a strip this wide. I was following one back the other day, and he did that, and I'm still going, whoa, this is, yeah. The cost of that for 800 metres to end up with a road not much wider than what it was, I just struggled to see where that was. It in the plan to make it a passing lane, or was it changed through the process or something? Because it seems like it was, you know, the farmers sold land, the fence is now way out there, and we've ended up with a whole piece of land on the side with a strange looking cycle track on the side of the road. Feedback on that, the reasons why it was done like that, because that's the area that we're getting. Certainly getting asking some pretty hard questions on it.
I can give you, I'll get a fuller answer for you, but I don't think it was ever proposed to be a passing lane. So it is a slow vehicle bay, so just to provide extra space for slower vehicles to move over. They're two very different things in both their construct and safety requirements. So yeah, it was not, or it isn't a passing lane per se. It is a slow vehicle bay, is my understanding. But why that was chosen, I would need to come back to you on.
I would have queried it was under that format to be a slow vehicle bay, where it's actually, you've come over the top of the knob and it's on a downhill slope. Most slow vehicle bays are on an uphill slope where vehicles actually end up being flow. This is a place where trucks are actually picking up speed after coming over and on. So, you know, people feel obliged to pass, and trucks feel like they are obliged to move over. But I just really so if you could get some clarity on why we made that decision would be quite helpful. It seems like, I've been told it was a $2 million exercise. I don't know whether that's right or not, but we get told all sorts of figures from people that are obviously know more than we do. But look, it seems at a time when we've got limited funding in that region for roading, that what we do, we need to make sure we're doing.
And just on that, so that you are equipped, that isn't funded in the same way. That is funded through the Connecting Tairāwhiti programme, so that's provincial growth funding. So that's not coming out of recovery, rebuild, resilience, NLTF. It's an entirely separate funded programme.
But like, yeah, even so, like, no matter what pot of money it comes from, we'd still like to be thinking that the right decisions are being made and we're getting real value for money, and it just doesn't seem to, that one certainly doesn't seem to stack up. Thank you.
All right, Kitty, got any questions?
No.
So I'll move that Linda's paper be accepted. Yeah, can I have a seconder? Sorry.
You mentioned speed cameras and safety cameras. You mentioned safety camera on red light. Is there any other purpose for a safety camera?
Yeah, you'll have been aware there was quite a bit of media coverage about us trialling for distraction, so people using cell phones. That happened quite extensively. We had it up in Auckland for a period of 6 months, and also for restraints to support the police. And you know, kind of the key things are distraction, impairment, speed. There's another one in there. So yeah, safety cameras have been being trialled for a whole range of different options. So that's why we don't just call them speed cameras now, because it will enable us in the future to utilise them in different ways. So that was a 6 months trial, of which the results are being assessed as to how we could roll those out across the network more broadly to support enforcement.
So is that like a video someone's watching, or there's some AI technology that picks it up?
It snaps as it comes through the camera. It gets read by the computer program, and then it gets parked to one side. And that was one of the reasons for the trial, is how do you ensure the privacy of all road users through the capture of that information and the disposal of that information, because it does take a photo in the car essentially. So there's quite a lot of media coverage around just that. Yeah, but yeah, it is broader than speed or just red light camera now.
Thank you. Okay, so it's moved by Debbie, moved by me and seconded by Debbie. All in favour? I just wanted to sort of popped in my head, James, sorry, just in regards to the future resilience paper, making sure with our iwi partnerships and that all of our iwi and mana whenua are engaged in that fully, that process.
Certainly will be, and Tina and I have got a meeting with our Māori partnerships folks in 15 minutes
Okay.
to discuss that very issue, but yes, absolutely right.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to close this meeting and then go into public excluded. Just a very quick, I think it's just to move, so what do I do? Move that we go into public excluded. Yeah. Thank you.